good job about is the enrollment process, right? And, having, he made it clear in our last meeting how just about every panel out there has a test for TS1 and TS2, and he thinks he can complete enrollment in 18 months, where you had asked me before this, I would say it takes 24 months plus. But it's clearly if they're able to find the patient, that shouldn't be an obstacle.
I remember we bugged you on that a long time ago. And I think with Josh involved, you have to be an A, or else Josh is going to be unhappy with you. He doesn't accept, he doesn't like people like me or B suit. He only likes, he only likes the A's. And so, actually, I just want to spend the last few minutes, and I know we haven't actually talked about this, but you have this one drug, right? Mario, it's, could be a great drug. Knock on wood, we really hope it's a great drug. But, what about the rest? If you think about company building, right? It's, if you think about, I'm trying to think of good examples, oncology, Eloxo, for example, right? They had Trax, and they had RAT, and they had a BTK, and, it's about company building and really being able to have more than a single product to create, a long-term sustainable business. And I know you have plenty of IP, the 2037-ish time frames, 2038, but, how are you thinking about building additional assets? Do you think you'll internally develop them? Will you in-license them? Just from, a high-level company building standpoint, now that you actually have, plenty of capital and a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, so absolutely, that's a very fair question. So once we get the TSC1-2 study rolling, once we get commercialization done, I think we will move the focus also onto exactly what you said, right? So can we bring in assets to add to the pipeline? And that's it's a given, right? So I think, but the focus of that from a timing perspective is probably going to start sometime next year, right? Once we have a few of these, other. Yeah.
When I think about, everyone's trying to find these oncology agents, and, it's going to be a very competitive landscape to try to in-license things. What do you think your edge will be? And I'm kind of surprised, because I thought you'd say you'd have some more internal development and kind of trying to apply, essentially this albumin binding, macromolecule to a lot of other different chemotherapies, different targets, and trying to play around with this initial design. You have kind of like an ADC, right, where you do a bunch of different tumor-expressing antigens and see what happens.
So that is also part of the process, right? So I think that the key is, as we bring in key talent, right, which we're doing now, and then, like I said, in 6 months, you may see a different face of the company just in terms of build out and the people that are in it. So that in itself will help in bringing in potential other assets. We've been asked this question several times about leveraging the albumin technology for other molecules. And that's pretty much a given. It should be understood, though, that the license that we have from Celgene, now BMS, is specifically for this molecule. So that's not to say we can't expand the license to something else we want to do, but that's another part of the process.
Between you and I would try to expand that license ASAP now that you have, plenty of capital and strong shareholders. And the rationale really is when you think about so we're trying to essentially predict the future, right, at the end of the day. And, the things that we look for, probability dependencies, right, where if X occurs, then it increases the probability of Y and increases the probability of Z, right? It just feels like that's a better predictor of the future if there's some sort of probability dependence. And I think this company would be much more powerful if you had a license of assets where if TSC works, then we feel comfortable about this asset and that Y asset and Z asset.